welcome to another episode of the Grumpy Dads. Before we go any further, I want you to stop, go and hit like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so that you know when we've got new content coming up. There's loads coming up, and you're not going to want to miss it. I'm going to welcome, as always, Chris.
Hello, mate.
And this week, we are joined by the one and only Allyn Smith.
Hello, everyone. That is how I like to be introduced, the one and only. There are actually two in the town I live, and one was the mayor. But that's hard.
Alan and I used to live in the same town, and we used to come across this where, the mayor of the town had the same name, and it often came up in conversation. Chris, do you want to kick off?
Yes, we will get straight into icebreaker antics. I'm not sure if you've ever seen an episode, but I will explain the game for new viewers. I scour the net looking for 1-star reviews. You have got to guess the product based on the reviews. You've got one guess per review, and Duncan will be on your team.
Right. All right. I'm very competitive, so let's go.
Okay, so first review. I thought the grip was great until moments later I realised I had blisters.
I'm going to say secateurs.
Secateurs is a good guess, but it is incorrect. Duncan, what's your guess?
Again, I can't say what you immediately make me think of. I blame you, not my own. Yeah, I blame you. I'm going to go a shovel.
A shovel is a good guess, but it's not correct. Second review, cheap and nasty. Even for £5, it's not metal.
Cheap and nasty, even for £5, it's not metal.
I'm not sure what the exchange rate is for Australian dollars, but it's still cheap.
You say quid, I just think $1. I'm going to go a spoon.
Spoon is
terrible.
Correct. No, it's not correct. Duncan, what's your guess?
Oh, I'm going to go to a stock favourite that we actually haven't. I've guessed a few times, but hasn't popped up. I'm going to say a screwdriver.
A screwdriver is not correct, but one of you was very close. Or it's in the ballpark. I'm not going to tell you who, although it is the third review. But this broke before my potato did.
A potato peeler.
You know what? I was thinking potato peeler as I was writing this down, but it's not. It is so close.
A potato masher.
Yes, potato masher. Potato masher is the correct answer. We'll go on to our second product. First review. So many attachments, but pointless if it's rubbish.
I'm going to guess one of those, power tools where you've got the different things you can chuck on it, different ends.
Drill.
Does that make any sense?
Drill?
It does.
Like a drill. Like a drill.
I don't know why I'm leading you down that path again. I know it's wrong. It's never right.
It is where I was going. I'm well known for my prowess with power tools.
Delving into your wrong answer is something.
Chris loves doing this. Just leads you down the garden path and then goes, no, you're wrong. I'm going to say a vacuum cleaner.
You are 100% right.
Hey!
You thought you were going to be wrong there. I can see your face. Loud, weak, and I've got to say ugly as well. It's a con. My brush is better at picking up.
That sounds like my Tinder profile.
So, loud, weak. What was the rest of it? Sorry.
Loud, weak, and I've got to say ugly as well. These are the final two reviews of the Hoover or vacuum cleaner. But we can't go one episode without Duncan getting in trouble with his wife. So it's.
I haven't mentioned what I wanted to, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do this way.
Didn't you just mention you had a Tinder profile? He doesn't even know. Okay, third product, first review. It smells like a baby ate it and filled the canister with the aftermath.
Canister.
I'm going to throw it to you, Dunks.
Yeah, that's got me.
Canister.
It's the canister bit that's really got me.
And it's apt. It's very apt for the description. This is a very lucky one to have it on the first review.
I'm going to go for a can of Pringles or something like that.
It's not correct. It's not correct.
I've got nothing.
Okay, we'll go pass. Okay, we'll go to the second review. Revolting. Summer breeze, maybe next to the tip.
Air
Okay.
freshener.
Air freshener is correct. I thought
Yeah.
you would have got it on the first one, to be fair. Smells, canister. Never mind. But third review. Third review. Wrong label. Should read bottom of the bin.
You'd have to be pretty upset, wouldn't you? I need to mask some horrible odor in my house.
I don't know why
Plug it in
people
and
were
it's
buying
like,
cheap
no,
air
no.
freshener. It doesn't make sense. Why would you buy cheap? Anyway,
I get annoyed with air fresheners at the best of times, though.
why?
I don't like this whole thing of spraying after you've been to the loo. You get this whole thing of...
No, you need to spray after you've been to the loo. This is not a thing you need to draw the line in the sand on.
Yeah.
Just go with it.
It just smells like... I think I heard Billy Connolly talk about it, and I totally agree. It's like, oh, it's supposed to be gardenias. It smells like someone shitting your gardenia patch, you know? Like, it just makes it smell like someone shitting a flower bed. There's no...
Okay, we'll move on to the next part of Icebreakers, which is crazy questions, random questions that we just want your opinion on. First question is, what's your back in my day we?
Back in my day, we.
He's talking
back
about
in my...
we used to do, not bodily functions.
Nintendo Wii? No. Look,
back
yes,
in
that's
my
a very
day,
good
we
question.
was
Not weird
yellow.
places you pissed on or anything. It's just
I'm so sorry. Yeah, look, no, back in my day, we could walk to the shops for lollies and we'd pay 20 cents. 20 cents.
So I need to step in here with an Australian to English translation. In Australia, sweets are called lollies. So we're not talking ice lollies. We're talking sweets.
No. What are lollies to you?
Lollies are ice lollies. Or lollipops.
Lollipops. No. Oh, you mean like popsicles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ice popsicles.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you could walk to the shops and you get a bag of sweets. 20 cents.
I feel this isn't going to be the first confusion and translation.
It's so interesting. The things I had to relearn coming to the UK.
Why lollies, though? I don't understand why lollies. Why are they called lollies? I mean, sweets make sense because they're sweet, but lollies.
Yeah.
Why do Americans call candy? They're called chocolate candy. It's just...
Yeah, it's because they're idiots.
So we have sweets. That's dessert. So I think do you call that sweeties?
No, it's called dessert or pudding.
Yeah, pudding. Afters. Depends on. That's the problem with the UK is we've got all different dialects wherever you go. So it's all called. Don't ask the English what you call a cob or a roll, because then it will start this huge debate. There's not much unity in our country. We argue.
It really isn't, is there?
No, because you can travel. I could go to the next town and be listening to a completely different accent, which is what I love. I love that about it.
Duncan, what's your back in the day we?
You know, strangely enough, I was talking to a chap at the school this morning, dropping my son off, and we were actually talking about this. And it's the sense that back in my day, I could go out at the age of 10, 11, 12, walk up to my mate's house, go on my bike, hang out for the day outside, go home when the sun was fading, and it was all okay. Nobody batted an eyelid. Now it's like, what about pedophiles? What about, murderers and serial killers? Well, why aren't you completely 100% of the time monitoring your child from the moment they're up to school to home? They need to be monitored at all times. And I don't know, I think we've lost a lot of innocence.
My mum and dad wouldn't know where I was for an entire day. They just knew I was out somewhere. I was with my friends. It was probably all fine. I mean, yeah, that's exactly right.
My parents
just sort of check in before dinner.
Yeah, I think my parents were just glad I wasn't there,
It was you walked in and you've been out for like 12 hours and they've been, oh, where have you been? And just, I've been gone for 12 hours.
Yeah.
I could have been to Spain. We got a plane ride back.
No, but there's a difference there between us now.
Yeah.
I can't go to Spain for the day. I wish. But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I remember doing all sorts of things too. Like we'd go and find, I don't know, I remember caves, but I think that they were just like big water drain pipes that you could walk in. You know, really sanitary stuff.
That's it. But again, in Australia, it's a whole different environment as well. So the dangers were actually much worse because you could be bitten by a snake or a spider, or attacked by a wombat or whatever.
Attacked by a wombat.
Killer wombats. They're a big problem.
Little known cousin of the drop bear is the killer wombat.
For anyone who doesn't understand what drop bears are.
Going to be holding a drop bear. She's got the drop bear suit on. How are you feeling?
Well, at the moment, okay, because there's nothing near me, but it is a bit like a Batman suit. So I'm a bit worried about why I need this level of protection. Okay.
Right on.
They do go for the legs.
Okay.
So drop bears are a close cousin of the koala, but they're actually really vicious. So it's sort of like a dingo and a normal domestic dog. They're bigger, they've got longer claws. They've actually got really small fangs, and the interesting thing about the fangs is they have a really mild venom. It's not like a snake venom that can make you really sick, but it just causes a lot of really local irritation. So the third most common injury that we see in tourists in Australia is actually from drop bear attack. So here we go.
I'm getting something to cover my eyes as well.
So James Cook, one of the early explorers who first came to Australia, he actually coined the term. So he was there with Joseph Banks, and what they found was that these things kept dropping out of the trees and attacking them, and they thought they looked like little bears, so they were just like, we'll call it a drop bear, and so the name's stuck. But technically, it's actually just a subspecies of the koala.
It looks very like a koala.
Yeah, like a wilder version. Yeah. So if you look at, I won't come too close, but I'm just going to point. So the difference between this and a normal koala, firstly, you're going to see the size. Then if you can see he's got those black hairs that are almost like bristles. They actually come out a lot further from the fur, so they're really, really coarse.
Right, keep your hands down nice and low.
Okay.
Alright, I'm just gonna flat hand.
Okay.
Oh, he's flicking yours now.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Okay.
no fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice and steady with the bear.
I normally go
Keep
for the
him
eye.
calm.
Yep.
Everybody looks
say
very
you're
worried
little-
about this. I'm trying not to be worried because I'm being told that he can sense if I'm worried.
Yeah.
We've been told that this is quite a dangerous bear that's been known to attack people. It's called a drop bear because they drop out of the tree to attack people. Just been handed it and had to put on all of this protection gear because of what it might do to me. I'm not quite sure what it's doing right now.
Shit.
Oh, it's looking at what? Okay.
No, I thought he was going to get you.
Right.
Insurance ITN insurance might not cover this. Do you want to take it off?
Shit. I'm really not happy.
I'm going to get the dart gun. Just don't move. Don't move.
No, okay.
Notice I have an extra
Okay,
thumb in hand
okay.
compared to the koala.
No, take it off, take it off,
Please,
take it
please take it
off.
off me.
Go on.
Yep.
Okay,
Alright, alright.
okay.
Good boy. All right. Good work, Sam. Thanks, mate. Let's go.
Come here.
You are kidding me! You're kidding me!
You look great.
Fucking Aussies.
We'll move on to our second crazy question. What habit do you wish you'd started much earlier?
There are too many. There are way too many. A habit. Oh, look, I could go on all day, but really, I wish I'd started exercising earlier than I did, and I also wish I'd never stopped, which I did. And I'm not in good shape. Please, I'm not. That's one thing that I wish I'd started earlier and maintained. No, that's not the spirit of the question, but it is the truth.
No, that's a very...
I think that's the spirit of the question. I think that's a fair answer.
It was. And when you were saying it, that was the exact answer I had as I was writing this down. It was literally, I wish I hadn't have gorged on food when I was younger. I wish I'd treated my metabolism a lot better. And I wish I hadn't stopped exercising, because now I'm trying to make up for it. And while before it took me a night's sleep to recover and I'd go out and run again for a day as a kid, now it takes me about 4 days to recover because my legs won't work. So it's old age is not to be messed with. Duncan, what's yours? What habit do you wish you started much earlier?
I would have gone for the same, actually, but in the interest of mixing things up, one thing I wish that I'd understood earlier and was not in the habit of doing was self-criticism too much. That constant sort of,
Criticizing yourself? Or you were criticizing yourself, or you wish you had?
That tends to be what self-criticism is.
No, I mean, you were criticizing yourself a lot when you were young and you wish you hadn't. Is that what you
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think it's good to be able to be reflective and think about, but it's funny enough, I remember having a conversation with Al, and he was saying to me, dude, you just need to learn to let it go. You only dwell on all the shit. You don't focus on the good stuff, and you need to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised I said that because it's not something I do well. So go me for good advice.
I think you probably recognised it.
I think self-criticism is a lot worse today, to be fair, with the generation coming up, where you got like Instagram, even Twitter, Facebook, filters, all of this sort of stuff. And every man and his dog and woman, they're all trying to fit into this category of what's supposed to be good looking. They're supposed to be attractive. It's
so backwards, and it's like everyone talks about accepting yourself and all that kind of stuff, but at the same time pendulum's completely the other way as well, where everything has to be, you have to look a certain way and think a certain way, and the thought police are out to get you regardless of what you think, and the trolls are out there ready to tell you you're fat or ugly or stupid or whatever. Learning to accept who you are and your strengths and your weaknesses and work with them is a huge thing for me. And I feel so much better for learning it this late in life. I wish that was something I could have very much done earlier on.
That's a good answer, that one. We'll move on to our third crazy question, which is, what movie universe would be the worst to live out your life in?
Harry Potter.
How come? Because he's kind of like real life, but they've got a wizardy world where they get on the plane. This is
a world where the children are consistently and constantly in mortal danger, and that's because of the decisions the school makes for them. That is not a good world. That is a terrible world. The duty of care in Harry Potter is terrible. These people are maniacs. That's it. Yeah, here's a quick competition. We want you to enter this competition against other people. You might die. You probably will die. But look, there's a couple of spells that you might learn to sort of stave off the mortality. No, Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, okay.
I never thought of it that way, but it's so true. It's like the complete, what we were talking about before about going to, having the day out and coming home. That's that world. We're taking to the worst extreme.
Yes.
I'm going to be like in school, so I'll steal a flying car and nearly die in a tree.
Yeah, that's right. God. Don't go near the tree. It will kill you.
Duncan, what's your answer? Because I can instantly think of something worse than Harry Potter's world, to be fair. there's a lot of mortal danger worlds, universes out there. What's yours before I say mine, Duncan?
I'm going to have to go with something like The Hunger Games. Not my favourite films, but that world's a freaking misery. No one wants to live in that society. I'm 100% sure. That, or I don't know, Mr. Tumble. That would be a hideous world to live in.
I'm not sure he's made a movie, to be fair, but
that's true.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought of that.
Why hasn't he made a movie to annoy us? Day of the Dead for me. I don't chased around. You see what I meant by tame? There's like there's total danger, and there's proper being chased down the street by a bunch of zombies. So
I feel like such a fool.
Yeah. I said Harry Potter. When you were saying that, I was thinking, come on,
zombies.
Suddenly you start thinking about, what was that one where one night a year there's no laws?
Oh, The Purge is a good one.
The Purge, exactly.
But that's only if you're in America, though, isn't it? So
that's true.
Which it wouldn't affect us. A bit like the Harry Potter thing, but
I once read a fantastic book that would actually qualify for this. It was called Incompetence by Rob Grant, so one of the guys who was behind Red Dwarf.
Oh, right, okay.
And it was a world with the United Europe, where a law had been passed, and you can see it happening so easily, where you're not allowed, you can't legally fire someone for reasons of incompetence. So nobody's good at their job. Everyone's in the wrong job. Everyone's an idiot, basically, just playing his role, except for a serial killer who's doing a very, very good job. It's sort of how they go across trying to nail this guy and say, brilliantly written. That would be a world that would be horrendous to lose.
I'm going to read that. This sounds great.
Armageddon, Day After Tomorrow. I was about to say Titanic then, but that wouldn't work, would it? Unless you were on a boat.
You are aware Titanic based on reality?
Yes, but if you're not on the boat, it doesn't really affect you, does it?
This is true.
Actually, another movie universe that'd be terrible would be the John Wick series, because by the time you get to the third one, there are more assassins than there aren't.
Oh, that's a bad one as well. I'm going to be kicking myself after, because it's like on the tip of my tongue, and there's a really bad one, but I can't quite think of it. But there's loads. There's absolutely loads that you just wouldn't want to live in.
I'd like to say any environment that involves Tom Cruise in any way, shape, or form would be a bad one to enter.
War of the Worlds. Another one.
Yep.
Another one.
You just reminded me of something. Alan and I had this thing a long while back. We were talking about, have you ever done the thing where you try and sort of switch names of movies, and what would the porn version of the movie be?
Yeah.
And we realised after some discussion, Tom Cruise films don't need to change the title for the most part.
That's
A
true.
Few Good Men,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top Gun.
Top Gun, Cocktail,
Vanilla Sky.
Rain Man.
Minority Report.
Oh, Night and Day. I think
Days of Thunder.
Not The Mummy.
not the Mummy.
Now becomes the MILF, doesn't it? Yeah.
You're a teacher. Do you have ADHD as well?
I do.
I
I've been diagnosed as an adult.
Did you see in the papers, I'm not sure if Duncan did, but in the Sun newspaper, I don't usually read it, it just comes up on the Google News, but the guys that, I wouldn't say attacked, but harassed Chris Whitty, the chief science officer, basically they've been identified, and one of the guys works in a estate agents, and he's been fired for his job, from his job. But he did say about the other guy who had, and I quote, suffered from autism and ADHD, and that's the reason why he went overboard.
Yeah, I find that stuff problematic. We had a politician here recently who was caught. Basically, he was sharing lewd photos of people with his colleagues on his phone. And his excuse was that he has ADHD, and I found that really difficult, because it's leaning on your diagnosis to excuse behaviour, which I don't. One thing I don't think that is because of ADHD. Impulse control is a problem, but that's really not impulse control. That's a premeditated decision. The other thing is that it really kind of paints people who have ADHD, autistic people, as being a problem, as having these behaviours, I guess, that are really antisocial, that they can't control. I really think it puts them in a bad light, and I think it's an unfair thing to say. Well, the reason this happened is because I've got ADHD. It doesn't wash with me.
I tend to agree. I had an interesting conversation dealing with my daughter and stuff like that, and we had a professional in. And one of the things that was noted was that you, at no point is, if you try to go to court and claim temporary insanity or something along those lines, things like, even things like, bipolar disorder, unless they're in a specific stage of bipolar, or, with any of these things, be they autistic, be they ADHD, you'd never get an insanity plea based on that, because they're not, unless you're really in a psychosis where you have no control. And that control aspect is still there. I think there's an understanding there that it becomes harder. And I don't think that's under debate. But to use it as an excuse for I actually went through and did it, I think is, like you say, problematic.
I think from my experience, ADHD explains a lot, but it doesn't excuse.
That's a perfect
things.
way of putting it.
Yeah. What led to, I mean, obviously this is fairly recent, you being diagnosed with ADHD. What led to that, man?
So ADHD it runs in families really strongly. There's a real strong hereditary link. And my sister was saying that her youngest son, she felt that he had ADHD. And me being a teacher, I'm like, I'm sure you believe that he does. I spend my day with students, and this whole kind of, I'm an expert because I'm a teacher. And I told her, look, no, you just change his diet, try this, maybe, change the way you're parenting, and, nothing worked. And she said, well, I'm taking him to see, if that's something that we should consider as a diagnosis, because I've been doing some reading. And I'm like, oh, you've done some reading on the internet, have you? Good on you. Good on you.
Good old Dr. Google.
Yeah. But I'm a teacher, And she came back and she called me and she said, look, no, he's been through some diagnosis. I've taken him to somebody very reputable. He's got a diagnosis. And I said, well, look, whatever you do, don't medicate him. And she said to her doctor on my advice, look, I don't want to medicate him. And the doctor said, oh, well, all right, we'll try some other things, but we'll keep that on the back burner. Look, long story short, he had ADHD. Everybody says that he is exactly like I was as a child, which I can even see. And so I decided that maybe I should get myself checked out. And I did reading. I tried to educate myself on what ADHD is. And it was very different to what I thought it was. I was one of those people who thought that ADHD is that kid, usually a boy, who is yelling, running, screaming, not listening, crashing into things, being destructive. What I didn't realize is that that can be an aspect of it, but it's really not about your behavior. It's about everything that's going on in the brain. And your body will manifest that. Your behavior will be manifested by what's going on in your brain. And I learned a lot about what ADHD is. And I went to my GP and I said, look, I just want to investigate this to see if it's a possibility, because it might explain a bit about my entire life up to this point. And the process here in Australia is you've got to talk to your GP, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and go through the whole testing. And yeah, long story, too late for that. Long story long. Long story long, yeah, I have ADHD, and I've tried a few different medications. I'm on something that I think is really good right now. And one thing that I have learned is that ADHD medication gets a very bad rap in the community, at least it does here in Australia. And it certainly does, speaking personally, as a teacher, I just thought that was a cop-out. But it is really effective, and it's been life-changing having the right medication with the right dose. It really has changed my life, and it's changed who I am as a person. My whole life, I thought I was really good at pretending to be an adult. It was like a part that I'd play. And even though I fundamentally think I'm the same person, I don't have that same sense of pretending to be normal. That's a terrible way to put it, but that's how I felt. It's like if my brain was hair, I've gone from Einstein to Don Draper. It's just combed it down and it's smoothed it out. And I can really sort of control is a bad word, but my thinking is ordered, much more ordered than it ever used to be. And I'm a big advocate for carefully getting diagnosis and investigating the right medication. I really think it can make a massive difference.
And the medication has done all that for you?
No, wouldn't that be lovely? No, the medication hasn't done it all. What it does is it's like without the medication, It's like glasses. I can look at my phone without glasses and I can squint my way down. I can read it. I can look at it. I can see it. My phone there. I've really got one. This is a useless prop if it's off camera. But, you know, I can squint my way down and I can hold it at a distance and I can read it. But it's tiring and it wears me out. And I can't really sustain that for a very, very long time. But I can do it. Medication is like a pair of glasses. I still have to read. I still have to do the work in terms of what I focus on, but the medication provides a way for me to do that. So I really see medication as like a pair of glasses.
That's a really great analogy. I like that.
Thank you.
And do you think, from what you were saying back there, is that sense of kind of pretending to be an adult and pretending to be something? In autistic talk and circles, you hear a lot about masking, which is the idea that, and it's a subconscious thing, but like, so my daughter will go into school, if there's a new teacher or something different, she goes into masking mode, which is where she sort of bottles everything. So I appear to be typical, and you know that gets me through, and then get home and it all explodes. Is that kind of a similar thing? It's almost like trying to fit into a mold of what's expected.
Yeah. It is. It's being what you think you need to be accepted. Because I have spent a lot of my life feeling like I'm too different to be valued. I'm too different to be liked. I'm actually too different to really be of any use. And so, yes, you do the masking thing, you pretend. But the thing is that takes a lot of energy, right? I mean, if you're spending your whole day being somebody that you aren't, and you can get very, very good at it, but eventually, you know, it's like, and this is too real, like sucking your gut in. You know, you can do it, but eventually it's got to come out. You know, you've got to relax. It's very, very hard. I know that as a kid, when I look back at things when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time trying to be the good kid, particularly in class. You probably know, like, girls are massively underdiagnosed with ADHD because girls learn to be very compliant. So they'll sit there and they'll smile, but their brain is almost, you know, like a fly in an ointment jar, we say in Australia. I don't know if that's an English term, but, you know, a fly buzzing around a jar. But they just sit there with their face and nothing goes in the brain.
It's the swan analogy, isn't it? You get that swan thing. It's graceful on the surface, but underneath the feet.
Paddly.
Yeah.
Except that all of that activity is not really focused on anything. So I was that kid, and I have been that adult where I'll talk to you for a while. You'll tell me something, and while you're talking to me, I'll just start thinking about stuff. Might start off, you know, just thinking about, oh, look at the shirt that he's wearing. Is it got a Nike tick on it? My shoes used to be Nike, my running shoes. I haven't been running for a long time. I'm really not very fit anymore, am I? You know, I really got to get back into that. You know, somebody will say, what do you think, Alan? Yeah.
It's often something I've wondered. Does this go for something that's entertaining as well? If it's engaging to you, do you switch off still, or would you hang on to it? Because for myself, and this is, I haven't been diagnosed with ADHD or anything, but I always used to find my problem in school was if a subject was boring, no matter how much I wanted it, I wouldn't be able to concentrate. And I would just lose focus completely. And that's why I've always been so, I've always criticized the education system for being too rigid, that they didn't teach me problem. And I don't say it failed me because I made up for it after, but for entertainment for yourself, if it's entertaining, do you hold on to it a lot better, your focus?
Yeah, there's that thing called hyperfocus. So, you know, when you've got ADHD, you basically a person of two extremes. If it's not interesting to you, then nothing will get you to latch onto it. But if it is something that is genuinely interesting, well, there's your dopamine hit, because ADHD, they're fairly sure, is all about that lack of dopamine in your brain. And when something's interesting, there's your dopamine hit. And so then you're getting that good stuff. And so you do what's called hyperfocusing, that's when you forget to eat. That's when you don't stop for lunch, even though you're starving, because you've nearly got this thing, whether it be a game or something you're building or a problem that you're trying to solve. Hyperfocus will get you there. A really good analogy I heard listening to a podcast from America on ADHD was that one guy said, it's a little bit like, forgive the vulgarity, it's a little bit like getting it up. You know, if you're not finding it appealing, there's no way your brain can get hard for it. But if
that
it is
a great analogy, actually. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty good. But, you know, and you can't stop it. If it is interesting, you can't stop. It's like, boing, I'm in, you know, and that's been my life. In fact, my partner said to me once, I don't understand why you forget to close the garage door, but you can name every single person in Iron Man 3 and their relation to the Marvel Universe. I actually can't do those things. I just can't remember what it was about that we were talking about at the time. But because of that hyperfocus, because I'm really interested in it, I'll remember all that stuff. I can tell you every Doctor Who in order, including the non-canon ones, but I will forget to close the garage door.
That's so true. Do you think that hyperfocus side of things, because that's a common thing with autism as well?
Yes.
And do you think you're a very, very good musician? Is that
right?
Played into that? Did you think from back in the day, because it was, you know, sending the right signal?
How I got good, but it's how I got good, but it's why I never was great. Because while it was novel and really interesting, and I would hyper focus on that, like playing guitar, I got quite good at guitar very quickly. And then at some point, the novelty had worn off. And so the dopamine's not firing anymore, is it? So then it becomes a little bit more like work. And so I kind of stayed as what's that phrase? I'm the world's okayest guitar player. Because hyperfocus got me there very quickly. And now I don't. So yeah, absolutely. You know, when I was being diagnosed with ADHD, my psychologist and psychiatrist also wanted to see if I was autistic, and so I went through some of that too, because there are commonalities between ADHD and autism, and there are commonalities between ADHD and bipolar disorder. In fact, they think that there are a lot of people running around who have been diagnosed with bipolar who may actually be ADHD, or perhaps vice versa.
I think there's a massive. They're all what I call related, in my opinion. I mean, this is my own research and stuff that I've done over the years of being thrown into understanding autism and neurodiversity in general. All these things tie in, and I think there's a central, it's almost like a central hub that these things, you know, they're like a multiple Venn diagram, if you like, where all these conditions sort of surround, but there's these convergence in the middle where they join somehow, they're related to each other. And I mean, I've been studying at the moment on autism and doing a course on it. And it's one of the things they talk about is how often there are, I hate the phrase, but they call them comorbid diagnoses, but co-diagnosis, where very often, particularly with autism, you will be autism with ADHD, with SPD, with PDA, with, you know, any number of things, PICA, or, you know, all these things that sort of surround it. It seems to me there's a really common root with it all. Yeah,
well, I mean, we're talking chemicals really in the brain, aren't we? And what's going on there, and perhaps I'm not a neurologist. You'll be surprised to know, you know, the makeup of aspects of the brain too. That comorbidity stuff is really. I remember when I first heard that word, my psychologist saying it, and I'm going, "Am I dying? What? Morbid? What are you talking about?" But now, you know, I say that word like I too am familiar with all aspects of mental health. No, the comorbidities is a real thing. ADHD, and I suspect autism, is comorbid with anxiety, and so I have anxiety. I have a generalized anxiety disorder. But my theory is, and this isn't something that I've made up, doing research, it's a manifestation of the ADHD rather than being something that goes alongside with it. It's really common, and I relate to this. People who have ADHD growing up, you learn to not be a big fan of yourself because you are that kid who's always being told that they just need to stop and shush, shut up, just concentrate more. Just will you stop tapping? Will you stop talking? Will you stop? Will you stop? Will you stop? Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Because of that impulse control stuff when you're little. And we grow up having a really poor sense of self. And I did, absolutely. Now, I grew up in a very loving family, great parents, but all of the things that happened around me, why can't I just do it? Why can't I just stop? Why can't I? Why am I such a bad person? Why am I, so annoying? Why am I such an annoying person? And then you get anxious about all sorts of stuff. I spend my life being anxious about whether or not I remembered to, for example, close the garage door, or, all the things that in the back of your mind, you're always forgetting stuff. So you're thinking, oh, what did I forget? And there is often something. I have this anxiousness, which is also born of, I'm talking a lot, which is also born of this thing where ADHD people have very active brains, which also manifests itself in overthinking. So, we're not the only ones that do it, but we're the people that lie awake at night and go, what about that thing you said to that person today? And they've forgotten about it. And you're just going...
But I'll do that about things I did 20 years ago.
Yes.
It pops in your head,
Yes.
do you remember when you did that? You suck as a human being. I can lie awake for hours.
The feeling, this sinking feeling, even now,
Must still
they hate you. They're talking about it to their grandchildren.
It takes your breath away when you get that thought. You kind of stop breathing, and then you go, "Oh,
Yes.
it's awful." Yeah, and then you remember to breathe again. Yeah,
I know. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it, but overthinking is terrible. But it's also overthinking about what could go wrong. For a lot of my life, I never really. This sounds so dramatic, but it's true. I never let myself be happy because if everything was kind of going well, my brain would go, "It's going to go wrong," or "Is this enough? Is this enough?" I mean, it's like your brain is so restless, which is ADHD, that it just won't kind of stop. And I'm happy to say that one thing, this sounds terrible, but it's actually great, about being medicated is it stops my overthinking. And so I can shut off, which is like a blessing. I can shut off those kind of stray thoughts that start to project into non-existent situations that they're going to play out badly for me. And so I can just go, I'm not going to think about that now, which I used to think was a superpower, and everybody lied about it. When people would say, I just try not to think about it. I go, right, try not to think about it. Why don't you try not to have your right leg? Because it was impossible to do. I remember once Mum took me to, because I was being anxious when I was a kid, and she took me to a person to give me some, meditation-y kind of relaxation tips. Well, I tried as an adult as well, whether, empty your mind. It's like, what? You can't empty your mind. You can't do that. You can't grab a moving car by the tailpipe and pull it back and hold it stationary when somebody's got their foot on the accelerator. That's impossible. These people are making shit up just to make money out of the app that I spent $5 on. That sort of stuff.
You mentioned you were a teacher as well. Is that giving you sort of an advantage when it comes to students, whether if they do have ADHD, you can kind of relate?
Yes. And it has been really, really wonderful. And that's been not just from having the ADHD, but my hyperfocus when I was first diagnosed was ADHD and trying to understand it. I learned a lot. I have ADHD, so I've forgotten most of it. But when I'm dealing with some students who I'm told they have ADHD, I really do feel like I've got some good shortcuts into doing things or talking to them in a way that's going to help them. I know the burden of really not being able to order your thinking or your planning for work. So that's really nice. And I don't tell them that I have ADHD, but what I do is I say, I think you're a little bit, sometimes I struggle with this and, I need these things to really help me out. And they go, yeah, that's what I need. I need that. And that's been really, really nice. I work in a slightly different education sort of realm in that I am a teacher. I work at a school, but a lot of what I do is remote learning. So I'll often have situations like we're having now, or have a student one-on-one, and it's really great because I can say to them, look, you know, I know you've got to do these things by the end of the term or the month. And I know if I were you, I'd be just leaving all of that until the last minute. So what if I set you some of your own deadlines that the rest of the class doesn't have, and tell you this is due next week, and that's due the week after, and that part is due the week after that. And that's been really successful. And that's something I need. I'm a deadline person. Side note, again, with the dopamine, because we don't have as much of it, that's why we procrastinate, because we need the dopamine hit of an emergency, which kicks all of the stuff in your brain into gear. And that's how come you can get stuff done at the last minute in a kind of a supernatural way.
I wasn't aware of the whole dopamine thing. That's really fascinating me.
Well, they don't know why ADHD medication works, but they suspect that it has something to do with regulating and boosting dopamine in your brain. It's a certain part of your brain, and strengthening parts of your brain that lead to executive function, because ADHD is all about a lack of executive function. Dopamine, they just know that is a big part of it, because we have depleted dopamine, which is why people with ADHD, look, I know a lot of people say, oh, I do that, and I do that, and I do that. And a lot of these things are kind of across the board, but there is a massive prevalence of addiction in people who have ADHD, because they're looking for the hit that most people just kind of have naturally. It just exists. And again, being on medication, I can see what that difference is now. That sort of that willingness to kind of just be more content, I guess. It's killed my social life, but I'm very happy with it.
I think lockdown's done that in the UK for everybody anyway.
I don't like COVID in no way. I wish it would go.
I don't think many people like it, to be fair. I don't think everybody. COVID's all right.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, give it a go. No, I say that to preface, but I do like that I don't have to think of reasons to say no to things. That's nice.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we've said this a few times. It's like, I like the fact that I don't have to come up with reasons not to have a social life. COVID is so
my favourite quote on it, though, was that I want COVID to end because I'm getting too rusty in my excuses now. Yeah. I haven't had enough practice reasons to say I don't want to socialise.
That's right.
I need to be put in that situation again so I can come up with some creative
responses. That's it. That's right. Yeah.
What about the power of this thing that people can do, which I can't do, and somebody says, do you want to, we're going to go to a thing, you coming? No, because I don't want to. How good's that? I can't do it. They're like, oh, what if I hurt their feelings? What if I hurt their feelings?
The excuses I've come up with over the years have been terrible. They must have known. That's why they stopped asking.
Because I was going to say to you, Chris, I completely agree with you about the school system. It needs to be massively overhauled. It's an archaic system that we're holding on to. And the reason we hold on to it is because governments determine what happens with schools, and governments are beholden to voters, and voters will choose the lowest common denominator way of thinking about education, because we've all been to school, so we're all experts.
I absolutely agree, but it's been an eye-opener with some of the things you've said.
And I think you just summed that up in that 30 seconds monologue. Summed up so much that it would take hours to normally say. Mind blown. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. What a fantastic episode, and just so interested in hearing about the ADHD side of things. It's an area I haven't looked at enough myself, and it's really sparked my interest. Going to thank, as always, Chris.
Thank you, mate.
And Alan, mate, thank you so much for coming on and being so open and honest about your journey, man. It's just been amazing.
I've had a blast. Thank you so much, guys. This has been a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Please do like the episode. Please do subscribe and hit the bell for our channel so that you know when we've got new content coming up. It is so important to do. We will see you again next episode. In the meantime, stay safe.